Daniel had driven through Black Hollow dozens of times before. It was a forgettable place on the map, a single gas station, a diner that always smelled like burnt coffee, and a crooked church sitting high on the hill like it was watching everything below. He never planned to stay long, but that night on his way home from visiting his brother, he pulled into the gas station for a quick refill. The clock on his dashboard read 11:14 p.m. The old man at the counter barely looked up when Daniel walked in. He was thin, his skin like old paper, eyes sunk deep as if he hadn't slept in years. "20 on pump 2, Daniel said, placing a bill on the counter. The old man's eyes shifted toward the window, up at the hill where the church tower cut into the night sky. Then he leaned closer. "You driving tonight?" he asked, voice low, careful. Daniel nodded slowly. The man's lips pressed tight. Then he said in a tone that sounded more like a warning than advice, "Leave before midnight. Don't stay when the bell rings." Daniel blinked. "What bell?" The man didn't answer. He just stared out at the dark church tower until Daniel finally left. Back in his car, Daniel laughed under his breath, shaking his head. Some weird old local superstition, he figured. Still, when he drove to the diner for coffee, he found himself glancing up at the church too. The tower was pitch black, no lights in the windows, no movement. Just that shape against the stars like a watchtower for the dead. Inside the diner, things felt off. Half the tables were empty, but the people who were there ate in silence. Nobody spoke above a whisper. Every so often, someone would check the clock on the wall, then glance toward the church on the hill. The waitress, a tired woman in her 40s with dark circles under her eyes, brought him coffee without a word. After a while, Daniel asked, "Hey, that bell in the church still work?" She froze for just a second, then said softly, "There's no bell in that tower. Hasn't been one for decades." "Then why'd that guy at the station tell me—" She cut him off, shaking her head quickly. "Don't be here at midnight, that's all you need to know." And then she walked away, leaving the rest unsaid. By 11:45, people started leaving. One by one, they paid quietly and disappeared into the night without looking back. By 11:55, Daniel was the only customer left. The waitress locked the door and whispered, "Go." He stepped outside. The streets felt wrong now. Too still, too dark, like the whole town was holding its breath. Up on the hill, the church tower was a silhouette of crooked stone and broken windows. His car sat alone under a streetlight that buzzed faintly, flickering every so often. And then at midnight it began. The bell rang. It was so loud it shook the glass in the diner's windows, a deep metallic sound rolling down through the streets like thunder, echoing through the hills. Daniel's head snapped toward the church. No lights, no signs of life. But the bell kept ringing. The sound rolled through his chest, vibrating in his bones. Slower now, heavier, like it had been waiting years to be heard again. Then he saw them, figures, dozens of them, stepping out of alleys, emerging from doorways, walking in slow, shuffling lines toward the church on the hill. Men, women, even children, all dressed in clothes decades out of date. Long coats, wide-brimmed hats, dresses that fluttered in the cold wind. They moved in silence. Only the bell rang. Daniel stared as one passed directly under the streetlight. Its face was pale, eyes black and hollow, mouth slightly open like it was frozen in a silent scream. It didn't look at him. None of them did. They just kept walking toward the hill. More of them filled the streets, dozens now, moving in perfect rhythm with the tolling bell. Daniel called out, "Hey, what is this? Some kind of reenactment or something?" His voice cracked against the silence. No one answered. The bell rang faster, louder. The figures turned in unison toward the churchyard gates and walked through. Daniel backed toward his car, hands trembling. That was when one of them broke from the line. A tall figure in a long coat stopped under the streetlight, head turning slowly toward him. Its face was gray, sunken, jaw hanging slightly loose like it had forgotten how to close its own mouth. In a voice that sounded dry and broken, it whispered, "You shouldn't be here." Daniel bolted for his car, heart hammering as the bell rang faster, like it was chasing him down the hill. In the rearview mirror, he saw the church doors open wide as the figures poured inside, one by one, filling the dark, and the bell screamed above them. It didn't stop until the doors closed, and then silence. Daniel told the story later. Someone finally explained, the bell tower collapsed in 1968. The bell was melted down, sold for scrap, gone for over 50 years. But sometimes on certain nights they say it rings again. And when it does, they all come back. Ryan and Melissa had been on the road all day, trying to make it home before midnight. What was supposed to be a simple trip had turned into a frustrating mess of wrong turns and confusing back roads. The GPS had lost its signal miles ago, showing nothing but a frozen gray map, and their phones had been stuck on no service since the last gas station nearly an hour behind them. By the time they realized how far off course they were, the sun was already dipping below the trees. The woods grew thicker on both sides of the narrow two-lane highway, swallowing the last streaks of daylight. The road curved endlessly, no landmarks, no houses, nothing but the faint line of cracked asphalt vanishing into the dark ahead. Melissa kept glancing nervously at the rear-view mirror. "We haven't seen another car in over an hour," she said softly. Ryan tried to sound calm, but his eyes kept flicking to the fuel gauge. "We'll find a town soon. There has to be something up ahead." But there wasn't. The trees pressed closer, the sky faded to black, and then, without warning, the engine sputtered twice and died. The silence was deafening. Ryan tried the key again. Nothing. Just the chirping of night insects rising from the woods on either side, louder than before, like they were closing in. They sat for a long moment before Melissa pointed ahead. "Wait, do you see that?" Through the trees, maybe half a mile up the road, faint rooftops appeared against the dark sky. A town. Relief washed over them. They left the car on the shoulder and started walking. The pavement was cracked, lined with weeds pushing through the edges. No cars passed, no sounds but their footsteps and the distant creak of swaying signs. As they entered the town, the first thing they noticed was the silence. The buildings were there, a gas station with rusted pumps, a diner with dusty windows, a row of shops with faded signs hanging crooked on chains. But not a single light burned anywhere. Every window was dark. Every door was shut. No movement, no voices, no dogs barking in backyards. It was as if the entire town had been frozen in place years ago and left to rot. Melissa gripped Ryan's arm tighter. "I don't like this," she whispered. They tried the diner first. The door opened easily, hinges squealing into the still night. Inside, menus lay open on tables as if customers had just stepped out for a smoke and never returned. Coffee cups sat half full on the counter, long since evaporated to sticky rings. A jukebox in the corner leaned crooked, silent under a film of dust. Ryan flicked a light switch behind the counter. Nothing. The power was out. They stood in the center of the diner, listening to the faint groan of the wind outside. And then they heard it, a low electric hum. At first it was faint, like a transformer miles away, then louder. Ryan turned toward the window. Down the main street, one by one, the streetlights began to flicker. A cold bluish glow spread slowly across the town. Not warm like normal lights, not golden or inviting. These burned pale and unnatural, buzzing faintly like trapped insects. Melissa stepped closer to the window. "Finally, maybe people will come out now," she said, voice trembling, but no one did. The street stayed empty. The lights grew brighter. And then, beneath the farthest lamp at the end of the street, something moved. A shape. Human-shaped, but wrong. It stepped stiffly into the circle of cold light, head tilting slowly from side to side, arms hanging at odd angles. Then another figure appeared under the next lamp. And another. Each one stopped beneath the lights but never left the glow, standing motionless, faces blank and eyes like black pits reflecting nothing. Ryan whispered, "What the hell?" Melissa grabbed his arm hard. "We need to go." The first figure stepped forward. Then the second. The third. Their movements were stiff, too fast in sudden jerks like they weren't used to wearing human shapes. Ryan and Melissa backed into the diner as the lights overhead buzzed louder, one by one flaring brighter like a signal. Then the figures started toward the diner door. That broke them. Ryan shoved open the back door and they ran. Alleyways cut between dark buildings, shadows twisting under the flickering glow as more lights ahead crackled to life, one after another, always just ahead, like the town itself was driving them somewhere. The figures moved faster now, silent, relentless. Every time Ryan looked back, more of them filled the streets, heads tilting in perfect unison, eyes fixed on him through the cold light. By the time they reached the edge of town, Melissa was sobbing, gasping for breath. Through the trees, the faint shape of their car waited on the road like a lifeline. Behind them, the lights buzzed louder, brighter, the figures spilling into the streets like a flood, always just out of reach, closing in but never running. Ryan fumbled the keys twice before the engine roared to life. As they sped down the highway, neither of them looked back until the town was gone behind the trees. But just before the road curved, Melissa turned her head. The lights still glowed faintly in the distance, and in the last flicker before the trees swallowed them, she swore the figures were standing at the edge of the road, watching them leave. David had driven the same stretch of rural highway countless times before. It was the kind of road that cut through miles of empty fields, broken only by the occasional fence line or rusted barn. No gas stations, no diners, just 2 lanes of cracked asphalt and a whole lot of darkness. But that night he'd never felt so alone out there. It was just after midnight when David saw her, a woman walking along the side of the road. She wore a pale dress that clung to her like it had been rained on, though the sky was clear. Her hair hung long and dark, hiding part of her face. As his headlights swept over her, she didn't flinch, didn't look up, just kept walking. David slowed down. No one should be out here this late, miles from the nearest town. He rolled down the window. "Hey, you need a ride?" The woman turned her head slowly toward him. Her face was pale, eyes hollow but not in a tired way, more like she hadn't slept in years. After a moment, she nodded once. She climbed into the back seat without a word. David tried to make small talk as he drove, but she never answered. Where was she going? Did she live nearby? Nothing. The only sound in the car was the hum of the engine and the tires on the pavement. Finally, in a voice so quiet he almost missed it, she spoke. "Turn left up ahead." David blinked. He hadn't told her where he was headed yet. Still, he followed the road until a narrow gravel path appeared on the left. "Here?" he asked. The woman nodded. The trees on either side grew thick, branches scraping the roof as they went deeper into the dark. David glanced into the rearview mirror. The woman was staring straight ahead, expression blank, eyes fixed on something he couldn't see. After a few minutes, she spoke again. "Stop here." David pulled over. He turned to tell her they'd arrived. But the back seat was empty. Confused, David climbed out of the car. There was an old house nearby, its windows dark, roof sagging like it hadn't been lived in for decades. He called out. No answer. The front door creaked slowly in the wind like it had been left open. David walked up the porch steps, the wood groaning under his weight. Inside, the air was cold. Dust coated everything. But on the wall above the fireplace hung a single-framed photograph. It showed the same woman, standing in front of the same house. The date at the bottom read 1962. David stumbled back. Footsteps creaked overhead, slow, dragging steps crossing the second floor. He spun toward the stairs. Hello? No answer. Then, from the corner of his eye, he saw her. At the top of the stairs. Same pale dress, same hollow eyes. She was watching him. David bolted for the car, heart hammering, gravel spraying behind his tires as he tore back onto the highway. In the rearview mirror, the house stood silent and still, but on the porch she was there again. Watching him leave. Back in town, David told a gas station clerk what happened. The man stared at him like he'd heard it all before. She died out there, the clerk said finally. Car accident, 1962. They say she still waits for a ride home. David didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her sitting in his back seat. Silent. Waiting. If you made it this far, thank you for spending your night with us. If these stories gave you chills, there's plenty more waiting. Don't forget to subscribe to Night Fear Stories for new terrifying tales every single night. Sleep well, if you can.